Even announces it now.
Yeah, it's weird.
Welcome everyone to the regular meeting of ANC 34G. I'm Randy Speck. I'm chair of the commission. I represent the single member district that is 34G03. And that includes basically the area between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch with some additional areas. We'll introduce the rest of the commissioners who are here tonight. Lisa, you want to go next?
Yes, my name is Lisa Gore, and I'm the commissioner for ANC 34G01, which serves Hawthorne and sections of Barnaby Woods. And my ANC district runs from Western Avenue down to Oregon, over to Beach, up around the tributary, and a little past Pinehurst Circle. Thanks for coming.
John?
I'm John Higgins. I'm ANC 34G Commissioner for Area 2. My district starts at Oregon on the east to Utah on the west, and from Wise Road on the north to about Nebraska on the south.
Chris?
I am Chris Frombeluti, Commissioner for District 7, which is bounded by approximately Military, Reno, Nevada, and Nebraska.
And Peter?
I'm Peter Gosselin, District 6. I represent the neighborhood from the Western Avenue border with Maryland and the Chevy Chase Circle, down Connecticut to Military, the west side of Connecticut back to 41st with the peninsula over to the east.
And Connie?
Hello, my name is Connie Chang. I am the commissioner for single member district number 5, which is bounded by the east side of Connecticut, starting at Legation. It goes over to Western, comes down Broad Branch Road, and then cuts back on Legation with a little stem that goes from Nevada, Chevy Chase Parkway down to Jocelyn. Nice to be here.
Okay, welcome to everybody. I don't see very many people in our attendees list tonight. It's only about 5 or 6, but we're all welcome. And we'll proceed with our virtual meeting as we have for a year and a half now, almost. And as usual, the commissioners will have audio and video, and we will recognize any of the attendees if they need to participate in the meeting in any way. Commissioner Gore will handle that. She will recognize the speakers, and it will be helpful for her and for all the rest of us if you could rename yourself if you're not properly renamed in the participants list. So we'll just be able to recognize you and be able to recognize, to elevate you to a panelist if necessary. And depending on how many people join us, if a whole bunch of people come in late, then we might have to limit the time for each individual person. But as it stands right now, it looks like we're going to have plenty of time for everyone to speak if they wish to. And if there are any questions, please put them in the Q&A, and you can put comments if you want in the chat, but try to put the questions into the Q&A. We'll try to get to those as we go through the meeting tonight. And if we don't get to any of them, we do copy them so that we'll have them for a later time. The meetings are recorded and will be up on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow. Peter does a wonderful job of doing that. So we'll have all of that available on our website beginning tomorrow. All right, the first thing we need to do tonight is adopt our agenda. And I've got one modification that John noted for me, is that the presentation and discussion by the Veterans Advisory Board, they're not available tonight. And so we're going to postpone that to a meeting in June, which will give us a little bit more time tonight. Any other modifications or changes anyone has to the agenda? Okay, I move we adopt the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0, okay. For commission announcements, I have several tonight. The first is that the Connecticut Avenue traffic enforcement is going to begin again effective June 1st. And as most of you realize, there has been a study going on for some time about the possibility of eliminating the reversible lanes on Connecticut Avenue. But as of June 1st, everything will revert back to what it was pre-pandemic. Parking restrictions will be enforced and they'll go back to the reversible lane operations. Now, there has been some questions raised by particular members of the Citizens Advisory Committee that is advising DDOT about the reversible lane study. So why this is being done right now and whether it should just continue to be the way it's been during the pandemic, and that is with no reversible lanes. But DDOT is continuing to study this, study the traffic changes on Connecticut Avenue, and it does expect to have its recommendations over the summer. At some point, we might wish to ask them about this change to back to the reversible lanes and whether that's the right move at this time. I'm monitoring what other commissioners are doing, and I think they're in sort of a wait and see mode at the moment. So see whether DDOT is going to continue with this. Any questions or comments about that one? That announcement just came out today. So I don't think other commissioners are aware of it. Okay, I'll go on to the next one. The digital parking permits. DDOT has announced that it will preliminarily launch a Park DC permits, digital parking permits. And this will be a centralized digital system for DC residents and their visitors to manage visitor, temporary, home health aid, and contractor parking permits. This will be in residential parking permit areas. And it will be a single online portal for all of those permits. They're beginning live testing. They began on May 12th with a digital system available to residents in 2 ANCs in wards 1 and ward 6. But the system is going to be open to all residents on July 1st using the Park DC app. And that's an app that's available on Apple and Google Play stores. So that hopefully will facilitate the process a little bit. Next, the mayor's proposed budget. The mayor is scheduled to present her fiscal year 2022 budget to the council on May 27th. And the council will have a virtual public briefing on the proposed budget on June 2nd. And that's from noon until 6 o'clock. And it will be on channel 13 and you could watch that live as well as on the DC Council's website. Of particular interest, I think, for all of us will be the mayor's proposed use of the $2.2 billion in federal recovery funds that is going to the district under the American Rescue Plan Act. And the Department of Treasury has issued some guidance to states in the district on eligible uses for those funds as well. And so we're going to be interested to see how the mayor proposes to use them. And then we'll be following what the council does, of course, during its deliberations on the budget. The next announcement is with regard to Lafayette Elementary School. Commissioner Zeldin and I had a meeting with the principal, Carrie Brokart, this last week. And one of the things she brought up was that the school's budget for the upcoming year has been increased by $917,000 in one-time funds. This is only for this year, and it doesn't necessarily carry over to any future years. But they are going to be using the funds to increase positions for the school psychologist that will go from 1.5 full-time employees to 2, the Spanish teacher from 1.5 to 2, the special education teachers from 6 to 7, and the pre-K 4 teachers from 2 to 3, which of course we're all very interested in, and then first grade teachers from 6 to 7. And she also mentioned in that conversation we had with her that about 25% of the pre-K students who received offers from the Military Road Early Learning Center, which is about 30, I think, live within the Lafayette boundaries. So there were a lot of parents in the Lafayette boundaries who didn't necessarily get into those now 3 pre-K classes for that will be at Lafayette, but about 30 of them did get into the Military Road Early Learning Center, which is what we had hoped and expected. Connie, you got a question?
I don't have a question, but Michael is on the phone, and if you can raise him to panelist, then he could also join in right at this time.
Okay. Michael? While we're waiting for Michael, I'll go ahead and with the next announcement I have, which is the Lafayette Pointer Recreation Center dedication. On Saturday, June 12th at 11 a.m., the Department of Parks and Recreation will hold a ribbon cutting to officially open the new rec center and to celebrate the change of the name of the park and the rec center to Lafayette Pointer. And the mayor, I understand, is also planning to be there too. The mayor was there for the groundbreaking for the new rec center, and she'll be there for the ribbon cutting as well. This will be the culmination of work that's been done by the historic Chevy Chase DC. They've really done a wonderful job to recognize the Black families that were dispossessed when the district took over their land by eminent domain in the 1920s to build the school and the park. And the commission supported this name change with a resolution on July 8th, 2019. So this is a part of the effort that the whole neighborhood has had over a period of a couple of years to try to rename that park for the Pointer family that lived there. And the final announcement I have is that with regard to the Chevy Chase Community Center, at our last meeting, Cesar Enriquez reported about the considerations that DPR was going through for possible changes to their relationships with program instructors. And he was awaiting further guidance from the people at DPR about that issue, as well as the guidance on how they were going to open the community center and consistent with the mayor's expectation that we were going to return essentially to normal operations by June 11th. And I've emailed him this week last week, looking for further developments in that regard, and he really didn't have any. So I've invited him to come back to our meeting on June 14th and to report further on those two topics that are still undecided. Okay, other commissioner announcements? Connie?
Hi, okay, so I would like to make an announcement about Sidewalk Palooza, which is an effort that it's a district-wide effort, and both Commissioner Gore and I were alerted to it by Commissioner Erin Palmer in 4B02, and she's working with Nick Cimentelli in Ward 5 for All. It's an organization. And Sidewalk Palooza is a week-long effort starting June 4th to June 11th to notify via 311 request any sidewalk, either it's not there or the width is too narrow or there's something dangerous about it, something that needs to be done. You should take a photo of it and then send it. So our ANC, all ANCs were encouraged to participate. So there's a tentative plan. So hold the date for Friday, June 4th. We will try to do something to launch this effort and to get the community involved in documenting the sidewalks. And I believe Ward 3 bicycle advocates will help us organize something like this. And it should be really fun and it should be really good. And teens are invited to participate and to earn some community service hours, which I know for some high schoolers is very important so that they can graduate with their 100 hours of service. So please, if you show up, we'll organize it in the next few days. We'll post it out on how to sign up or just to show up and then just to do it. But let us know if you do have your team. Hi, Peter. Yes.
Do you have a link for where we should send photos?
We haven't done any of that yet, Peter. So
Okay.
we want to know how to collect it, and it'll likely, we will do all of that and we'll send it out. Yes. So I will post it we could post it on our website. I'll do it on the Facebook page, all social media. Once we have the information, once we're set, then we'll send it out and it'll be good. And on that same day, I think because, and this is the other announcement, which I guess I'll make at the small area plan, but we will also try to distribute some flyers for upcoming visioning workshops for the Office of Planning, but we'll talk about that during that section.
Any other commissioner announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to community announcements. I see that D. Smith is attending.
Alex has an announcement, Andrew Shapiro, and then I have written announcements from Amir.
Okay. All right. Whatever order you want to go in, Lisa.
I think we're starting with Andrew.
Okay.
Hey, thank you all. I can't unfortunately have my video on right now, but I actually want to speak on two different topics that are completely unrelated. As I usually work on Monday nights, I don't often have a chance to come to the meetings. So the first topic I want to speak on is one that I think several commissioners are aware of, and I'm speaking as a resident of 31st Street Northwest. I want to thank Commissioner Gore and Commissioner Zeldin for their help on this matter, and previously Commissioner Clayman. As you may be aware, we have a problem party house located at 6624 31st Street that has been in operation for well over a year. It is a very strange situation that brings lots of people into that area on Friday and Saturday nights. It started a little over a year ago, pre-pandemic. We worked to get it shut down. They kind of stopped and now they have started back up. They are obviously a real problem for this community as it brings in lots of people with mostly Virginia and Maryland tags to a weird kind of street intersection with 31st and Aberfoyle. I have personally witnessed a lot of these parties just sitting out in the yard where I rent an apartment in the house from, and seeing people walk their dogs, seeing people out at night, people trying to get home, their cars drag racing up and down the streets, their cars joyriding. And I worked in Shaw for a long time, so I, know what a really busy area is like late at night and what can happen. And there's a general consensus that people are quite afraid that something can go really wrong or people's cars can be damaged. I think people's cars have been damaged. So I just wanted to officially bring this to the record of the ANC, since I'm not sure anyone else has spoken on this matter, but it is obviously something that is an issue for the wider community and neighborhood as well, as both Aberfoyle and 31st are not the widest streets to get up and down, nor are they the best well lit, and they are pretty narrow in places. So I just wanted to bring that to the official record of the ANC, and I guess happy to answer any questions if that's what happens now.
I do have, go ahead, I'll go next.
Lisa?
Andrew, just to let you know, I am working with the DCRA to schedule a meeting with the community. So they have agreed to do that. I know we have MPD on the line, so maybe I'll get a commitment from them to also participate in that meeting as well. But we're just trying to get our schedules together, and hopefully we can have it within the next week or so.
Connie?
Andrew, I have friends who live in the area, and I wanted to know if I should send them to you to add their names to a list to be notified of these next meetings. Are you the right person then? I did get your email, but I wanted to make sure that that's okay.
Yeah, by proxy, I have become the person running the little email exchange. So I'll drop my email in the chat. If you just want to send them to me, I will add them to the chain.
That's perfect.
I think one of our things is that it's a way, to have police come over every Friday and Saturday night multiple times, it's just a complete waste of resources. And I think that it's just going to lead to something not good happening. So that's something we're also concerned about, is just draining the resources of the police to come into a neighborhood that police don't really need to be at. And I've lived on the street on and off for 18 years. And I can count on one hand the amount of things that I've seen happen. So I think that's one big issue. The police actually have been very, at least as much, I guess, as police are in like email chains. They have the commander battalion or whatever his name is, was responsive early on. But when I called them the last time, their response was just keep calling us. And like I said, we just don't feel like that's also productive. And then you have police cars on the street, you know, with their lights flashing. It's a lot of older people that live on that section and a lot of like families with young kids. So, you know, not the best recipe of late night interaction.
Okay, you had a second point, Andrew, that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, so entirely unrelated. I am also the owner of a soda company. I emailed all of you all a testimony in regards to the Nutrition Equity Amendment Act of 2021 proposed by Councilmember Nadeau and the Committee on Human Services. I know probably not an issue that the ANC would take a stand on, but because the business is based out of my apartment and I am based in this ANC, I just also wanted to officially get on the record in stating my opposition to this as it currently exists. We have no issue with the aims of the legislation and what it wants to do by providing enhanced funding for many different very valuable food programs across the city, particularly DC Greens, which I personally am very aware of, and I follow their newsletter, and they do a lot of work, particularly during the pandemic in helping food insecure people. As both a soda drinker and a soda company owner, I am always opposed to soda taxes. I don't think that they are actually very productive. If the end goal is to decrease people's consumption and that consumption is funding programs, that alone presents a lot of problems to me in terms of a policy. But in general, you know, I just wanted to get on the record that we were opposed to this as it relates to our ability to be a business, which is a unique business in the city. We are the only soda producers, and we are also a very health conscious producer of sodas. We use real ingredients. We don't use high fructose corn syrup. We have engaged in multiple processes of reducing the sugar level in our beverage to be consistent with where the consumer habits are at. The other part of it is these taxes are often, they fall on the people that can least afford them. They fall on the businesses that can least afford to endure what it means for their customers and, you know, their ability to have to eat, basically eat these taxes and profit margin. And there were lots of beverages and other very sugary products that were not covered under this act. So we have lots of issues with it. We think that it's going to be revised, but we just wanted to get on the record since we are based in this ANC that we are opposed to it, and we hope that it undergoes a thorough reconstruction of how it is going to fund itself. And we think that with all of the federal money coming in, there are ways to address these programs, and particularly as they relate to food education in the education system, that doesn't fall on the back of a weird regressive type tax. So I just wanted to get on the record of that too.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments by commissioners?
So Randy, it's Michael.
Yes, Michael.
Hi, sorry, I'm in the car. So
You want to introduce yourself first, Michael?
Okay, I'm Michael Zeldin. I am an ANC Commissioner 3G04, which is Lafayette to Henderson, Broad Branch, Western, that single member district.
Okay.
So, and this is my first term on the commission. I'm grateful for this opportunity to serve. I wanted to make a couple of comments. First, just Randy, because I was unable to get in, I was on as an attendee. From an announcement standpoint, I know I've received emails from people, and Parks and Recreation is waiting for a part to repair the hammock at the Lafayette playground. So they're just waiting on that part. That hammock has been broken for a month about, and so we're waiting on that. And then two, with respect to the Chevy Chase Community Center, I've been in communication with Enrique also about the repairs that are necessary to the playground at the community center. It's in pretty bad disrepair, and he said he'd get back to me on what the status of repairing at least some of the most egregious parts of the playground. Then with respect to Andrew's comments, two things. One is in respect of the 31st Street house. As Lisa knows, I have spoken to the mayor directly about this, and there is now sort of a large team of people that Andrew is the keeper of the email. 28-ish people are on that stream. My effort has been to get either the Office of the Attorney General or the U.S. Attorney's Office to look at it, because I think that they're in violation of law and regulation in terms of running a business out of their home. I think they've received PPP funding for it, and they've also received, I believe, homestead exemption when it's not a homestead. So I'm trying to run it from the angle of, can legal action be taken against this? Because I agree with Andrew that MPD, who has had hundreds, I think, of complaints, MPD has said is really unable to stop the rentals, which is the issue. It's not completely just the partying, but preventing future rentals from taking place. That's sort of the approach that I'm taking for it. And then on the question of the tax that Andrew has spoken to, I know, Randy, you have circulated the draft legislation, and I think that as a commission, we should find a time to study it and put it on the agenda formally to hear from the community on this and decide whether it's appropriate for us to issue a resolution or offer our advice to the city council on this bill.
Sure.
So I'd like to see us find a date in the near future where we can evaluate that legislation and then offer our counsel.
Well, as Andrew said, I think the legislation may be undergoing some modifications, and we probably want to wait and at least see what those modifications are. And if the past is any indication, the council is going to be completely occupied with the budget until they have their summer recess in August. And there will be, it's unlikely there will be any hearings on legislation until September. So we will have some time to look at that.
Okay, I just want to put in the record that I favor us taking it up at the time that it is appropriate to take it up,
Okay.
to give due consideration to it, because the points Andrew raised are relevant to our
Okay.
community.
Great. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have to say. I'm going to go back on mute.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Andrew. You want to let Alex make an announcement now too?
Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for
Hey,
your
Alex.
time. I just have a couple quick things. I'm sure a lot of folks have noticed that the mayor's changing of mask guidelines and regulations for businesses is in full effect as of last Friday. A number of businesses on Chevy Chase on the main street and throughout the area have now transitioned and are either making the decisions themselves if they would like to welcome guests in with masks or without masks. The Chevy Chase Main Street doesn't have any interest in prescribing a specific way for businesses to proceed. We want to continue advocating that businesses should do so in the way that they feel keeps their staff and their customers safest. That being said, we had heard from a couple of businesses that because of the announcements, both from DC government itself and even earlier in part from the CDC announcement, there was some confusion about folks coming into businesses, not understanding that at one time a mask was still required by law, and at this point that some businesses may still require it, despite that other businesses don't. To that end, I've been working with a number of business owners and identified that existing signage that has been up for several months, or in some cases over a year at this point, folks who have been seeing that for so long may think that no longer applies or is no longer relevant. I've been working with businesses to refresh and update some of their signage. And in particular, I've worked to try and assemble one standard piece of signage that has a check mark that allows a business to make note if they are allowing customers with masks or without masks, however they choose to, but to try and bring a little bit of visual consistency to businesses across the corridor. I've sent out those resources to our businesses on our business newsletter, and I'll also be traveling in person to businesses this week to drop off signs if they would like to make use of them and encourage them to do so. Again, just to make sure that customers are fully aware of what the needs of the business are, and again, to try and build some of that visual continuity. In addition to that, the only other announcement I have at this time is that we had concluded our previous round of funding that I updated on one of these calls, I believe, last month. We are now actually soliciting a second round of grant funding. We have some funds that were still available after the first. These are small business grants that can be made exclusively to Chevy Chase businesses. This time, the main different parameter is that the previous grant round was for grants up to $4,000. This time, we're focusing on grants up to $1,000. We're experimenting with a couple of different price ranges to get a better understanding of what serves the business community the best. And this is the second round, and there will be additional rounds coming later this year. So that's the reason for the discrepancy on the amount that can be requested. Those applications are due Thursday, June 17th, and there's more information on our website. But I'm also working with businesses to keep them aware of that process and various information sessions that are coming up. The last one I wanted to touch on was I talked a few times in the past about the American City Diner site and the graffiti that had appeared on the sign there. Since the last call, fortunately, I was able to get in contact with the business owner. They were able to proceed with a private contractor and were able to cover the graffiti. It was, I think, about 2 weeks ago exactly. Unfortunately, it's been brought to my attention that in the last couple of days, another portion of the sign was tagged with graffiti. It's specifically the area that they've painted over. I'll be reaching out to them again. And it was also suggested that they perhaps might want to look into a video surveillance system. I'm happy to speak with them about that opportunity as well. I do know that the district does actually offer a private security camera rebate program that I've worked with other businesses in the past. That would again require on the business's interest in taking part of it, and that would only cover the costs of the camera itself and not things such as installation or the continued monitoring of it. But I will continue to work with that business to try and identify as many ways as possible how they can prevent future graffiti, and if there are resources the city has that they can make use of. But those are the announcements I had at this time, if there are any questions.
Peter?
Yeah. Does anybody, Alex, do you know, or do any of the other commissioners know when the last time, whether DCRA has sent inspectors out to decide whether or not that's a blighted property? I understand from Randy that there's an exemption from the vacancy rules and regulations if a property is up for sale or lease, and of course the American City Diner is. But we've moved into I'd argue that it's a blighted property and we ought to do something about it. I guess I want to know when the last time an inspector was out. If it's a long time ago, is there any reason not to call them in, try to call them in again? It's a mess. It's an eyesore. It scares people. It's clearly attracting things like graffiti. Shouldn't we be doing something about it?
So what I'm aware of at the time is I'm unaware of the last time that an inspector was brought on site. I believe you are correct with, as you mentioned, that properties that are actively listed are exempt from that status, and the property has continued to be listed. I have continued working with the agency KLNB, as well as a number of other vacant property owners to try and learn more about what they're looking for and see how we can sort of raise that property's profile and connect them potential businesses. But at this time, I'm not aware of the last time that there was an inspector. But I do know that they have active agents working on the site. I'm not sure if any other commissioners have.
Do any of the other commissioners have any sense of that? And do any of you see an argument for not acting here and giving the management company more time to try to lease it?
So I have, my personal opinion is that the management company needs to clean it up and to make it tidy. If they really want to lease it, they need to make it look pretty nice for the community, and that is a pretty heavily trafficked area. So there's a window that's broken. It's been covered up. Peter mentioned it last time. I'd seen it before too. There's a set of keys just hanging there. you know, the place needs to be, it needs to be kind of spruced up a little bit, you know, and we did talk about using some of the window fronts for posting, like the Office of Planning's, you know, the small area plan announcements and other things. So maybe that management company can work with us, because I think otherwise, I tend to agree with Peter, you know, we don't want property just sitting there. We need to have some kind of plan, like what are they doing to move it forward? It's not just sitting there empty.
Here, my recollection is that the last inspection was about a year ago, maybe a little bit more than that. And I recall that they found evidence of rodents and some other things there, that there were some fines imposed, I think. And some cleanup was done, but it would be appropriate, I think, to ask again. And it's a simple thing to just send an email to vacant buildings, and they're supposed to schedule an inspection. I think it's within 3 or 5 business days.
I'm happy to do that. And if we don't get immediate action, I suggest that we ask somebody from the company to come talk with us at a public meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Connie, did you have anything else?
Yes, I have 2 things. One is, Alex, there is graffiti also on the front window of Harmonic, which is they moved from the arcade to where Salon Familia is. And I walked again over there and the graffiti remains, but I guess the owners, can you please tell all the commissioners in the community what's happening there? And then I have another thing I'd like to mention.
Sure. So, you know, similar circumstance to the billboard. I've reached out to the owners and let them know. In their case, previously, part of the problem with the billboard cleanup was that at the time the city was advertising, they were still doing graffiti cleanup of spaces like that. And at this time, they're not, even though it wasn't publicly available information on their website. They are still doing cleanings of properties like that and will provide resources. So I reached out to the property owner and shared that information with them. I have not heard back from them yet, but I suspect also with the move that they might be focusing on other tasks at this time. I'm happy to reach out to them again and let them know that it was discussed in this meeting and that there was an interest if they had a timeline or if they were able to sort of think about when they would be able to address that.
Yeah, because it's active right now. So if that billboard on American City Diner was just solved, just covered, and then there's graffiti on that left bottom, someone's climbing the walls and graffitiing. And I stood there looking and wondering, because I grew up in New York City and there's graffiti everywhere and it's not good. That at least they didn't graffiti the stone walls. That's much harder to clean up. But nonetheless, they are, it's happening. So it's not just at a high up place, it's now in a very visible spot. So we need to do something about it. The other thing I wanted to bring up, Alex, is that there were people who pledged to support Chevy Chase Main Street in letters when it was being formed. I'd like to be able to encourage people to fulfill that pledge. And I know that you guys have sent out emails asking, but in the email, there was no reference to the amount that was pledged. And I think that you might want to do that because if people pledge, they should honor their pledge, and they may not remember what they pledged. And if those letters are with you, then perhaps there could be some reminder. And then at a future date, you could tell us how much was raised. That would be really nice to know.
Certainly, that's a very helpful suggestion, and I can reach out to our comms folks that we work with and include that in our next round of messages. Similar to that, I also wanted to let folks know that the city is also now, as they've been allowing more events, some of the other main streets have been focusing on in-person events and activities that can happen. At this time, the city has asked some of the main streets to try and focus events that could be included in fundraising as well as more general community and business improvement. At this time, the Chevy Chase Main Street is still waiting to take a little bit more information from our businesses and see what their comfort level is with an event like that and what they feel their capacity is. So just folks might be starting to see a couple events around the city in that way, and we just want to make sure we're collecting information and acting in a way that is the best for the business owners in ways that we can make sure that the community is able to attend in a safe and healthy way.
We do need to move on. I mean,
Yeah.
I do worry about.
We've got one more, Matt, and then Amir's announcements. Maybe we can just put Amir's announcements in the minutes.
Yeah, I've been trying to post them in the chat and I can't physically post them. So yeah, that's a possibility.
Matt?
Hey, good evening, folks. I know y'all want to move through, so I won't take up much time. In fact, I'll just make an offer. Instead of going through some announcements, I'll just tell you we're doing a lot of cool work. We need your input and support. I'd love to do a one-on-one with you to talk about it. So reach out to me by email or text or phone. Let's go on a walk. Let's talk by phone. I'm down to connect with you. And if you don't know me yet, my name is Matthew. I work in constituent services for Councilmember Louis George, and I'll put my contact info in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Randy,
Lisa?
just
Yes,
to remind everybody quickly that made announcements to please, if they're extensive, if you want them very detailed, send them in writing to me at 3g01@anc.dc.gov and include any links, hyperlinks that you want us to include in a specific announcement section. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready to move to the first substantive issue. And Connie, you want to address this? This is a briefing and discussion with MPD about the recent spate of carjackings. And Connie, you want to begin that?
Right. We heard of the military road one a few months ago. That was very alarming. It was late at night, and some individuals came to a car that was kind of stopped at a stop sign or a light and pulled the driver out. And then recently there was an incident on Davenport in Connecticut that I got wind of. And so we have invited Lieutenant Marlon Ollivierre. Yes, who is going to come speak to us about the carjackings and also just about crime in general between last year and this year. So welcome. And he's now a panelist, and I'm going to turn the mic over to him.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'll get to the carjacking in a second. I want to talk about 6626 31st Street. I've been in contact. Well, last year, I dealt with this with DCRA, and they were fined. The homeowner was fined for operating a business without a permit. My understanding is now that she do have a permit to operate a bed and breakfast or a Airbnb of some sorts. And everything died down for a while, and all of a sudden my email started blowing up with it again, which was very alarming to me. And I just monitor, the thing about it is this, with a business, that's mostly a DCRA situation. If crimes are starting to happen, you talked about the drag racing and stuff on the street. Okay, that's reckless driving. So yes, we can address that. But we haven't, not to my knowledge, of course, I haven't seen any reports come out. I don't know if the residents are actually reporting it. And that leads to my next thing I'm about to say about that. I am trying to work with the U.S. Attorney OAG's office to get that property declared as a nuisance property. Okay. I believe I emailed Commissioner Gore about this already, and I am working on it. However, it is still a home, and most of the time, nuisance property for businesses like nightclubs and drug houses and stuff like that. But since you do have a business license to operate some sort of business out of it, I think that will give me my way in to get nuisance property. So what we'll need to let the residents know is that they have to call us and make reports all the time, not some of the time, all the time. We have to stack up reports, arrests, and all of this. So when I take my file to the OAG's office, they could say yes, and they will contact the homeowner to have a sit down with them and lay out what's the next steps going to happen. So that's what I have to say about 6626 31st Street. It is a nuisance to me, so I could imagine what it is to the residents living on that block. Okay. I hate to deal with something and then have it come back again. That's why it's a nuisance. Reference to the carjacking, the military road was a few months ago. Yep, that was pretty bad. We're working on that. The detectives are working on it. We've had license plate readers up there. The thing we're trying to do is curb all the not just the carjackings, but all the stolen autos and everything. We're trying to get a handle on all of that because we do have a slight problem, not only in 201, but in 2D on a whole. So military road, you seen the car up there, sitting there. It's not just sitting there for nothing. It have a license plate reader. It monitors cars that comes and goes. And this is a route that the suspect uses a lot to transition into the next district. So that's why it's there. And we are adapting with them as well. So if they use another route, we start going other routes so we could alert the other districts when a stolen cars come in so they could try and stop them. Or when they come into our 2D jurisdiction, we could try and stop them as well. The attempted carjacking on Connecticut and Brandywine, that was a targeted incident that happened, a targeted offense that happened. And without going into a whole lot, because it's still under investigation, it's a domestic thing. It's a domestic incident. The people know each other. And it's been reclassified as an assault with a dangerous weapon. I read the emails today, says, hey, I don't see any carjacking on here. Carjackings are classified as robberies. So that's why I didn't see it in the stats as carjackings. However, that's how we speak about it as carjackings. So what I propose to do for 201, and what we have been doing, it's high visibility to try and deter. If we could deter people from doing stuff, then we wouldn't have, many crime or any crime at all. If they say, you know what, there's too many police up here, we have to move on to someplace else that easy. But given the resources, I have 8 lieutenants or 7 lieutenants fighting for the same resources. So I am working on it. I propose to have the mountain bike units patrol the Connecticut Avenue up and down with the businesses, with the people outside on the sidewalk enjoying their coffees and stuff. I'm also trying to get a traffic unit to pull traffic on Connecticut Avenue and all the busy traffic areas. This way people will see their lights on. It's high visibility. They will know that the police is no more than a minute away. The other thing say again?
Nobody said anything. Go ahead.
Oh, somebody said something. So those are 2 of the things I propose to do. I already have a unit that patrols the neighborhoods, walking up and down. 2 Fridays ago, we had a coffee with the commander up on Connecticut Avenue, and I spoke with a lot of citizens, a lot of residents, and they told me about a few things that would happen. People basically riding up and down 4 or 5 deep in a car, stopping at houses, looking at them, stuff like that. So it's suspicious in nature, but it's a free country. People can ride up and down, look at homes, take pictures, do what they want. But to me, it's kind of suspicious. I wouldn't want that in my neighborhood. So I have a unit that's out there patrolling the neighborhoods, riding around, doing taking care of that as well. The other matter that came up on 3 out of 5 people spoke about was the Kenmore apartments. I've been in meetings with Mrs. Howard at Kenmore, Commissioner Gore and Gosselin on this. And just so you all know, we are working on it still. It's not everything I'm talking about here tonight, we're working on. We're still working on. Still under investigation. We're still getting really good information. They're getting a little bolder now with what they're doing. Just to bring everybody up to speed, they're selling marijuana out of the building, and pop-up is what we call it. You know, they pop up and sell it, but they're not giving the right address, and it's online business. Something that happened today, just reason why I was late. One of the reasons why I was late today, Rittenhouse. About three or 4 weeks ago, we had somebody expose themselves to the kids on Rittenhouse coming home from school. It seemed like it happened again today at 4 o'clock. We didn't get the report until 6 o'clock this evening. This time, instead of using an abandoned building or a vacant building, he used a building that was for sale to expose himself to the kids around Lafayette Rec Center. This time, I think we have a really good lead on who the person is, and hopefully that would pan out. But my understanding is this been going on for over a year now, and we've been trying to catch him. So all we have is a very vague description of a white male with a beard, older white male with a beard, blue pants, white shirt. And he's very elusive, I should say. The other thing, let me see, I talked about the Kenmore. Did everybody get the stats I sent out? I don't know if I sent it to everybody today.
No, but I can grab it from the email and post it in the chat.
Yes.
I don't know if the format will hold, but if it doesn't, I don't know how else we can do it. I'm trying to do that right now.
Off now, so everybody could look at the same thing I'm looking at.
Yes.
Anyway, basically, here we go.
You still with us?
I'm still with you. I'm just trying to get something to you right now. I didn't.
Trying to see if I can.
Honey, can you share your screen?
Okay, I just sent it to you.
Okay.
Okay, you sent it. Okay, good. That's good. That helps. Yeah, I can't just pull that table. It's unfortunate.
I'm sorry. I should have sent it out earlier.
It's okay. It's in the email, but I can't pull the table out of the email. I can't copy it.
I think I just did, and now I lost it.
Okay.
Did everyone get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I
Let's see
lost.
if we can.
Okay, so overall, the crime in 201 is down, as you can see.
I'm gonna put it
From
here. Let's see.
However, burglaries went up 50% by one. So did motor vehicles theft. As far as the total violent crime, but theft from autos, I guess everybody getting the message, dropped. And this is year to date compared to last year, same time. Theft on the whole dropped by 33%, property crimes by 54%. 54%, I think we could do better than that, but that's what it is right now. The grand total is we're down 50% in all crimes. However, ADW, we had one incident this year and 3 incidents of robberies this year. Okay, for the time period compared to last year. Goes back, the robberies I want to talk about 2 Fridays ago when we had that coffee with the commander, there were 2 attempt robberies. We feel that the guy wasn't using a real gun, because when the victims refused, he just ran away. 20 minutes later, attempted it at another location, ran away again. When they refuse. So we're actively looking for him. They did put a bolo out, a photo of him out, and trying to track him down at this point in time. But other than that, everything else looked pretty good. Yeah, as far as hate bias crime, the hate bias crime, 201, year to date, none reported. None of them has been reported. If somebody did report one, it probably was unfounded by the department later on. But so far, my crime analysis guy said that have not been supported any hate bias crime. And anyone have any questions?
No,
There's one question in the chat. And this is with regard to the house on 31st Street. What supporting evidence should people who file reports on this property be providing?
All right, yes. So call the police. If they have videos of them drinking in public, racing down the street, and they could get a tag number, all that stuff is good evidence for us. But basically, don't approach anyone. Just call us and have us do it. You could call us and speak to the officer on the phone later, after you tell them what you have, what you saw and stuff. But yes, definitely report everything. We have a noise at night ordinance. We could do reports for that as well on that property. Again, if they have videos, save it, send it to us. They'll attach it to the report. Like you said, the drag racing, the reckless driving, the drinking, the smoking, the dope in public, all that stuff. Just call us. We'll handle the reports after that. If there's any crime and you catch any crime on video, again, video plays a whole lot when you take it to OAG's office.
That's all right.
But yes, so just anything.
Glad to see you back.
Okay.
Any other question?
Lieutenant, I just want you to share with everyone why carjacking is up, what you said to me.
Okay, yes. So I was talking to auto theft, and they explained to me this way. Carjacking in the city and basically around the country goes like this. Prior to key fobs and stuff, people had to take a screwdriver and jam it into the ignition and go with it. Now the key fobs have the RFB sensors on it, and they have to get the key fob to use the car. Otherwise, it's useless. So it has to be more personal now.
Okay, and is the district aligning with like any federal team to, or state by state, because it seems like people are fleeing from DC going to Maryland and so forth with the cars. Is there any kind of cooperation across the jurisdictions?
We stay in touch with each other and try to see if there's like an actual one or something. But so far, everything just seemed to be a random or individual act. Most of the times they steal the cars to commit other crimes.
Okay, the only last thing I want to say is that I wanted to invite Lieutenant, the MPD over here, because I heard that about the Safeway incident. So last week, a week ago, two weeks ago, one of the cashiers noticed someone stealing, and actually Safeway, there's been a lot of items being stolen and then posted on Facebook Marketplace to be sold, like Tide detergent and other specific items like Dove bars, like soap bars or something like that. Right. And and the cashier noticed that, and there was no manager on site. So she took it upon herself to run out to capture the license plate of the vehicle. And when she did that, the vehicle stopped and they pepper sprayed her, and the police were called and the ambulance were called, and she refused treatment. She said she was all right. And she was off on Mondays and came back to work. She's okay. And it was not, the manager who I spoke to said it was not classified as a hate crime. They didn't think it was because of her ethnicity. But this cashier has been at Safer for 45 years. So she's a dedicated employee. And the manager is going to make sure that none of the staff walk out of the building if there's any theft. They're not going to do that again.
Right. And that's why I said, don't take the residents shouldn't take it, or the workers shouldn't take it upon themselves to approach these individuals. They may get lucky or bad things might happen. And we don't want any bad things happening to our residents. As far as that case, the detectives are working on it. They have a lot of information. They're working on it right now.
Okay, and my understanding is MPD is working with Safeway on kind of patrolling inside at certain times.
Yes,
and
they do.
then, and I don't know about CVS. There's a chat there saying there's a lot of theft at both CVS as well. And I'm not sure what you're doing there, but.
So with CVS, their regional manager said that any theft under $100, not going to report. However, we do still get calls in there, and that's how it goes out with that. Yes, there are thefts and stuff going on. Since the last time we spoke, MPD haven't seen any ring that's going around collecting all this stuff and selling them back on it. However, that appears to be an individual thing. Stealing the stuff and putting them on the Facebook marketplace. Right. That seems to be an individual thing. It's not no ring, right? I know I referenced LA to you last time we spoke.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lieutenant. We really appreciate your coming and keeping us informed on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. I'll send out an email about the Lafayette loot act exposure.
Okay.
Yes, we need.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks. Everyone have a great night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a report on the small area plan process. Connie and Peter. Peter, you want to take the lead?
You want me to start, Connie?
Sure.
Sure, I could add in whatever might be missing.
Let me set the stage for where I think we are in the small area plan by pointing out a timeline that is on the Chevy Chase, that OP has put up on the Chevy Chase small area plan website. It shows a process that beginning in March, and it does now extend until December. But if you look a little closer, one thing you notice is that 3 months have already gone by. The second thing you notice is that OP says we will have a full draft of our community plan just after Labor Day for a 30-day comment period. And so the whole fall is devoted to processes that don't involve the community and the community having a voice. At least it doesn't involve a community process here. It may involve something downtown. And the third thing, as we all know from having lived here for a long time, is that this city and this community in this city slows down in July and August. Effectively, what all this means is that we're easily halfway through the part of the process where residents, our constituents, can have a say over the future of this community. And what have we got so far? Well, we have a failed March 4th launch meeting. OP has had some virtual office hours where something like 24 people have spoken with them. We have had 4 community advisory committee meetings. There was a pop-up at the Lafayette School Farmers Market, May 15th. And what do we have on tap from OP? We have 4 visioning workshops that will accommodate 50 people each in June, and a yet to be scheduled charrette, or maybe a couple of charrettes during the deep of summer in July or August. This commission has said repeatedly that it has found the process thus far, in the words of our latest resolution, not sufficiently ambitious or well executed. We have proposed a way to pull this together. 4 weeks ago, on April 26, we passed a resolution saying that we would sponsor a series of community-wide forums to serve as a focal point and a center of gravity for the small area planning process. As Chair Speck rightly pointed out, these meetings would be a major and very difficult undertaking for us, and we needed to act with dispatch to get them underway. Since then, we've had several, as commissions or large portions of this commission have met several times on this subject. I've talked repeatedly with experts in virtual meeting technology and local officials in Fairfax and other jurisdictions, and I've written you 4 memos. Just over a week after we passed the resolution on April 26, on May 6, several of us met with OP, and OP's hired facilitator, John Lasky, to explore the possibility of Lasky facilitating these community forums. Lasky was impressive at this meeting, and I thought the meeting was very positive. But subsequently, we were told that we couldn't use Lasky, and then it was suggested that perhaps we could use Lasky, and then we were asked to produce an objectives and expected outcomes document, which we did. And today, 10 days after we provided OP with that, hours before this meeting, Erkan Osberg sent us an email which didn't quite say no, it just had some suggestions, in his words, that would provide OP with more clarity, in his words. Now, I could go through, and he then listed a bunch of questions, and I could go through and say, here's the question Mr. Osberg asked that we should answer, and here's what we said in the document that answered that question. But I reached several conclusions, and I'll spare you the experience of my going through that, but I'd be happy to write it down for you if you wanted me to. I reached several conclusions. One is that Erkan and OP simply don't understand the value of democratic discussion. They seem to think that the legitimacy of this process comes from above, perhaps from the mayor tasking the agency to do a certain process. They don't seem to understand that legitimacy, and I know that I sound like I'm reading from a mid-50s civics textbook, they don't seem to understand that in this society, legitimacy comes from the people, not from the top. Secondly, they don't seem to believe that a community, perhaps because it's affluent or privileged or substantially white, could possibly come out to the right place if allowed to discuss issues themselves. The third conclusion, and the one that turns on what I think we should do, is that absent our becoming more assertive about the value of such democratic discussions, these community forums, and much firmer in our faith that our own community is not, our own community will come to a good end, to a good place if we in fact do this kind of discussion, it's not going to happen. We have a very small window to pull OP's fat from the fire and to do the right thing for this community. Now, I understand that many of you, I mean, it is a legitimate thing for you to say, we've done what we can. And if we in this discussion come to that conclusion, I will accept it. What I'm going to do, if we all don't do things together, is I'm going to start the meetings that I think we ought to have with my SMD. I think I can manage those as an amateur hour thing because it's a smaller group of people. But I think what we ought to do is act together. One of the things that has stayed with me from the very beginning is Abe Clayman saying, this body is only powerful when it acts together. That is the sole source of our power. We need to intervene above OP with Councilmember Che, perhaps with the mayor, and get the use of Lasky. I just don't think we want to take the risk as a commission, the risk to our credibility, and the risk to the planning process, having already hit the wall once with a bad meeting, of doing this with volunteers. It's too complicated a process. It needs to be done right. So what I would, while I understand that you might well say, you know, we pushed hard, we pushed through multiple resolutions and they've not done any good. We gotta go on to other stuff. I think that we ought to form an emergency committee of 3 or 4 of us, ask for a meeting with Councilmember Che, ask for a meeting with the mayor, ask that we get to tap these resources. So finally, let me just say, and I'm sure Connie, when she talks about this, there are lots of community groups that are doing things. We're among them, and we're going to do more. But all of these things are supplemental to the central process. If there's no central process, then we can supplement till the cows come home, and it doesn't make any difference. And finally, I wrote you a memo yesterday. I want you to imagine us a year from now, when the time's up on the small area plan, when OP has gone on to other neighborhoods, and when a developer comes along and says he's going to knock down the building at Livingston in Connecticut, just for example, or the M&T building, or, and the neighbors, I mean, can you hear the hue and cry? And do you think that when we say, well, there were 4 visioning sessions, and there was a meeting where nobody got to speak back in March of 2021, you think that's going to wash? And if it doesn't wash, it may well be that the developer gets that up, but it will be after a battle royal and a deep wounds to this community. And we're about trying to make sure, we should be about trying to make sure that doesn't happen. Enough.
So I think I should update the group on what we heard at the CAC meeting, setting aside, what Peter wants us to do so people can hear some other things that were said. Indeed, there were, as Peter said, this is the March 4th meeting that OP held with 300 people on the phone and technical difficulties and frustration. April 7th and 8th, they held virtual office hours and about 24 people showed up or something like that. They were going to go to Chevy Chase Art, but canceled that. They had been speaking to the farmers market, and on May 15th, they were there on Saturday. I showed up for an hour toward the end, and about 100 people showed up. And at the farmers market, they were able to have a poster with the small area plan, and they were able to talk to people who had heard some things about the small area plan, but didn't understand a lot of it, found some misinformation, and also were kind of excited to learn more. And when I was there from 12 to 1, they spent some time, there were 3 of them, and they spent some time talking to each person and answering their questions. And then there was a sign-up sheet to be notified of anything that's upcoming. And for this upcoming visioning survey and the visioning workshops, what we were told is the visioning survey, which I posted on the Facebook page, and I tweeted it out, and I believe it's been out on some of the social media, but we should do it again. That survey will be open until the end of June. And they're asking people who live here, but also who frequent the area, who come here to shop, who come here to study, who come here to maybe take a lesson at the Chevy Chase Community Center, to fill out that survey. That survey and the visioning workshops are complementary. So the survey is open now. It's going to go until the end of June. They sent out 1,900 postcards to residents in the small area plan boundary, which is 41st Street and to Nevada and Military up to the Circle. They sent out 1,900 postcards. I got mine on Wednesday or Thursday, so I'm within the bounds. And they did that. They are now currently, Peter and I both, and another person on the CAC just got an email about how to access dwellers in apartment buildings to try to make sure that they are aware. They did send it out, but they want to doubly make sure. The visioning workshops are scheduled for June 5th, which is Saturday, from, I had it written down. They're all hours. So Saturday, it's like, I think from 10 to 12, right? Tuesday, June 8th, it's 11. So I don't want to say the times wrong, but I know it's June 8th, June 9th, June 10th, and it's at different hours, night and day. And what they told us was people should sign up now, publicinput.com/Chevy Chase, which I'll put on the chat. And when you sign up, they're going to cap it at 50 because the facilitator needs to have enough staff to man the breakout rooms. So they'll have, people broken out into 8 or 10 breakout rooms. They've asked the community advisory committee members if we would be, if we one of us or two of us can go to those breakout rooms, one each, I guess, to those breakout rooms, just to help facilitate conversation or do whatever we need to do to, to sit in and to help. And then they're going to come back, which often happens in these big meetings. They go out into the breakout rooms and they ask people for what they think and what they'd like to see. And then it gets reported. Someone gets assigned to report back to the larger group, and then they'll have more conversations. So the first part of that workshop will be about a half an hour of what the small area plan is and what they expect to see and what they've learned so far, what the existing conditions are. And then they'll break everyone out into small groups and then bring back everyone in and then have a further conversation. There's going to be 4 of those. If there's demand, they'll do more. But I think our job and the community job is to make sure that people know that there's a survey. And there was a question asked during that meeting, what's enough? Like, what's the respondent, rate that would look good enough? And the number came out to be the magic 700, because that was the comp plan survey. So if we had 700, that would be like enough. If we had more, even better. And if we can make sure that people sign up, we've got to go and alert everyone. So we have to do our best to make sure that people get there. And if there's more demand, they will hold more meetings. And they also said to me, when I asked at the farmers market, they will report out those meetings at other locations. They're trying to find other locations. And so Lieutenant Ollivierre just said the commander was there, with the table that was at Starbucks. And so maybe the farmers market was one venue. They may come and put a table out at Starbucks and to try to interest more people, and also maybe to report out. So that's what they told us. And they asked us to help. Now, the other thing we were told is Northwest Village Neighbors, Northwest Neighbors Village, NNV. They have their own survey, which I will also post in the chat. That's for 60 and above. And the questions that they asked is they wanted people to talk about, and I'll just very quickly go over the topics. Are you 60 or above? If you're not, you cannot fill out the survey. If you are you currently living in Chevy Chase, DC? Are you, as part of this ongoing citywide planning process, we'd like to hear your thoughts about the future. They ask about commercial, like corridor, is it a good mix of businesses? They ask about government services. They ask about diversity and inclusion. They are asking about safety and accessibility and transportation. Only 9 questions via SurveyMonkey. And they would like, and they also say, if you can't fill it out because you're not older than 60, please go straight to the OP's project website to fill out their survey. Now, I'm hoping, I think the survey results will likely be shared with OP, so OP has a sense of what the neighborhood wants, but that is what the civic organizations that are members of the Community Advisory Committee is trying to do. This is trying to get people to participate. I believe that that's all I have. If you think of anything else, I'll add to it. Oh, one more thing. There are other organizations giving talks. So Historic Chevy Chase DC has their series, and they just have their second of 3 webinars. So please go there to sign up, and the recordings are also there. And Chevy Chase Citizens Association also had their seminars, and we should look at that. And then others like Ward 3 Vision and so forth. We should try to, and as Peter said, these are complementary. These are not the main deal, but it's to help around the edges of what we think that people would like to learn more about.
Anyone else have comments or questions? I've got some thoughts. John?
Yeah, a couple of these sort of random thoughts, but Connie mentioned the 1900 postcards. The agencies have all kinds of mailing lists. The Office of Tax and Revenue sends out bills twice a year to everybody in the city. What access could we have to OP, Tax and Revenue, Mary Che, Louis George, to their mailing lists, to use them, and particularly to lower the cost, to use government franking privileges. We've discussed sending out direct mail, and we noted that that's a pretty expensive deal. But we're a .gov and OP is a .gov. We're not a private corporation. We're not even a nonprofit private organization. We're part of the government. Can we get government lists and send mails at government rates?
I don't know the answer.
Because, you know, one of the things is simply making people aware that this process is afoot and that the ANC is doing its darndest to try to get its hands around this and to get feedback from the community at a community level basis, not as a reaction to OP. So if we can find a communication mechanism that's reasonable in cost, I would, you know, if you wanted me to be on that here's little subcommittee to chase these things around, I'd be happy to do that. That's just another one of 1,000 commitments that I've raised my hand for. But I just can't keep my hand down.
Okay, Lisa?
And another way, one more.
Go ahead,
Peter,
John.
if push comes to shove, are we wasting our time trying to get Lasky? What would be the, I did a little Googling this afternoon. I found 2 conference center facilitation services in the city, one right in our neighborhood on Wisconsin Avenue. Would it hurt to call a few of these people up and talk to them, try to get some kind of an estimate, see maybe if they would do something on a pro bono or discount basis, because this is a civic operation, and see if we have, you know, if we just said, okay, we're going to have a meeting on June 15th, let's go. Where would we go? If we just said, forget about OP, let's just go. Where would we go? You know, I think contacting some commercial people would be one of the things that would be a natural thing to do.
Lisa?
I just wanted to go back to Peter's original conversation, because I think he has an ask of the commission that we have to address. So it's very interesting to hear the timetable of what's gone on, what has been done, the cancellations, the poor planning, the poor show out, you know, in the beginning. And I don't know if I missed it, maybe I did, but it really didn't dawn on me until very recently that the visioning sessions would be capped at 50 people. And I just cannot, I don't know where that's coming from, Randy. And I just am really don't see how that's serving the community. I'm very concerned about that. I'm so very.
Let me just raise one thing then. I looked this afternoon and there are 38 people that have signed up for 200 spots.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 162 spots that are untaken at this moment. And what we need to do, I think Connie emphasized this, is we need to make sure that all 200 of those positions are filled and that they then add more visioning sessions. They add a 5th and a 6th and a 7th.
Let me just say this. We've talked as a commission about, and John just brought this up again, we've had several conversations as a commission about how to engage the constituency here and things to do, things to explore. We've talked about mailers. We've had people put up flyers on their own. We keep going around and around with that discussion, and we don't seem to kind of get to a solution or get to a place where we all, maybe not even all of us, where we're trying something. I mean, it's definitely up to planning, Office of Planning. It's also up to us. Randy, I can tell you probably half of the people on my block don't even know about this. So well, I get there's like 136. I agree with you. There's 136 slots and people don't really understand. And it's not just our fault. this is also a big burden is on the Office of Planning. That is the government agency that's responsible for this process. We're helping them out. We're going to lend to it. All the other community groups are lending to it. But we have a big communication issue here that I don't think our constituencies realize that these things are occurring. I just talked to somebody yesterday and they didn't have an understanding of all that. So I don't know, what our solution is going to be. I don't necessarily even agree with, even if you had all those 50 slots filled and you just got 4 sessions of 50 people, that's not sufficient. And I just, adding additional sessions, I think, the community would kind of like to have a broader discussion about this as opposed to these individualized, singular discussions. So there's a couple issues there, but I'm just stating on the record, I'm very concerned about it. I don't know who we need to talk to, but it seems like, we need to have some discussions on this at different levels within the government.
Okay, Peter, and then I've got some things to say.
I want to appeal to my fellow commissioners to stand back a minute and try to think about the months we've been in this process. Now, the timeline on the website says it started in March. We know perfectly well it started before that. Erkin came to the predecessor commission in mid-October of last year, saying they were launching off with the community advisory group. But of course, we didn't actually have one appointed until sometime in late January. Connie is right. There are a lot of things that this community, because it's a concerned community, it's an engaged community, have been trying, but they're supplemental. And so the question is, what do we think that OP is doing? Because if we take Randy's route and we say, well, it's our job to get people to fill these other 162 visioning slots for these 4 visioning sessions. It is, and damn it, I'm already signed up and I've already taken the survey. I'm on that first Saturday morning one, but so then we get 200, and let's say we get 2 more sessions, and now we've got 300, and maybe we'll get 2 more after that, and now we'll have 400, and there are 15 to 16,000 people in this community. 400 people in these segmented 50-person groups would maybe it will do the trick, maybe, but maybe there will be some charrettes that are really interesting and like suddenly loads of people can come out and we can do it in person. But I asked my fellow commissioners, we've seen OP behavior over months and months and months, well before March, right? I mean, how do you read it? I mean, do you really think that trusting them to do the centerpiece of this process makes sense? We voted in April that we were going to take that job, and we have proposed it, and we have pursued it, and we have pursued it, Randy, per you, with dispatch. We understand, I mean, that this is a big job and it needs to be done. OP has basically stood in our way on this one. And I would argue that we need, to John's point, I've already talked to some facilitators. It's expensive. Nobody's going to do this for pro bono.
Nobody gets it away.
I mean, we could take a pat and go, I'm happy to cough in some money, towards us paying for one, but finding one is hard. We had a perfectly good, Lisa and Randy and I had a very productive meeting with Lasky. He knows the issues. He's steeped in this subject. He's working with OP, so he's a crossover. He's perfect for this job. Now,
but
say,
Peter,
so I just say, why don't we go get him? And why don't we go over OP's head to get him? Go ahead.
Just one question on that. I'm very shocked to hear that OP thinks that they need to cap the sessions at 50 to accommodate the facilitator. And they're asking,
Because they only have so much staff and they have
so
to
many
staff
breakout
it.
rooms. They have to have a
Yeah,
staff.
I mean,
breakout.
in every case, it's that. It's also you're going to get the March 4th problem. So this is why they have invited people in this way. So 50, then when they break it out, it's going to be, 5 groups of 10 or 6 groups of whatever, and to have enough people to be able to capture the conversation and
Yeah.
then to facilitate that conversation and then to bring all of that together.
no, I get that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I've been on a lot larger, and I guess you know, it's what you pay for.
Well, it depends,
that-
I think, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you go on.
I was going to say it depends on what you're hoping, what you're asking people to do, I guess is what I'm saying. So I've facilitated lots of group discussions where I didn't need to stand by everyone. They're in their little breakout table and they do what they do. But in this case, I think it's to capture individual comments and then to be able to feed it back to the whole. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I've been
Different.
on those too, and I just am very shocked that that's the cap, and that's the reason being said for the cap. I'm very shocked at that.
I just have a comment on methodology. I've been on some of these breakout things too. Sometimes I think breakout sessions dissipate the message. You have your large group, and then you break out into a smaller group, and then a lesson learned from breakout room A differs from breakout room B and breakout room C. You kind of lose a kind of continuity there that you get with a meeting of the whole, and you don't know exactly. Each breakout leader actually may have just a little bit different angle towards the discussion. So now you have 3 different points of view than any kind of uniform point of view. That's a standard methodology. People kind of use it because it's just there, but maybe you have to think about the methodology as well. Maybe that's just too technical and too nuanced, but.
Well, I've been on both sides where, it's when they bring it back, each group sees that another group has ideas that they themselves didn't think about. I think it does take training to make sure you're delivering the same message, but CAC members are supposed to do a dry run to see how it goes. So I think that question will bring up, how do we make sure that it is standard and that we can, how are they going to capture the information, but and how are they feeding it back? And will there be a broader discussion when they feed it back to the group of 50, the larger group? So we could ask those questions.
Okay, I've got a lot of reactions to all of this. First, I think we need to be very pragmatic about this. The objective here is to get a successful small area plan. We all agree with that. How we go about doing that, there are probably a variety of ways to do it and still achieve a successful small area plan. I'm not an expert in running facilitation meetings like this. Lasky and his group are. They have apparently advised OP that these visioning sessions, this is the right way to go. They may be right, they may be wrong, I don't know. But in the short term, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have the visioning sessions, and we're going to have them before we're able to do anything on a larger scale. That we just couldn't do anything before June 5th. So what I think we should be doing is making sure that those visioning sessions, whatever flaws they have, that they are the best they can be. And that we get out as many people as we can to participate in those meetings, that we participate ourselves so that we can see what's going on and that we can help the process in any way that we can. And that if there is a sufficient demand, that we insist that OP conduct additional visioning sessions. Right now, we haven't seen the demand, perhaps because we haven't been out there pushing it, but we need to be pushing it. Everybody does. All of the CAC members and their groups ought to be really pushing this to see that every one of those slots for the visioning session are completed. Second thing I think we should be doing is we should testify at the OP hearing, on the budget hearing for OP, which I think is June 10th. And we should talk then about whatever shortfalls we believe they've had in their process. And we should then ask the council for more money. If we think we need money for a facilitator, we should ask for that. And, you know, we couldn't get it in the budget until October 1st, but that probably is not too late if we really need the money. But that's what we should do. We should tell the council to fund this appropriately. Third thing, I don't, in my experience with Councilmember Che, and other council members too, she's not alone on this, they are very reluctant as the legislative body to interfere with the executive. And they will not take steps to direct or to even suggest what should be done to the executive. Now, they'll look at it in oversight hearings after the fact, but I have never seen Councilmember Che try to direct an agency to do anything. And the mayor, I suspect, is going to be in the position of saying, okay, those are the people I've hired. I've left it to them to run their business. I'm not going to tell them how to operate on a day-to-day basis. So I think what we ought to do is ask for a meeting with Mary Che to brief her on where things stand. And she can take whatever action she wants. Frankly, I do not think she's going to step in and try to do anything to change what OP is doing. But I think we should keep her informed of what's going on. And then I think we should really focus on those other programs. They're supplemental, they're around the edges, but we should be doing those kinds of things. I mean, we've talked about getting those programs organized, getting somebody like Empower DC to come in and talk, to fill what I think is a significant gap in what we've been hearing from others and presenting. So those are the 4 steps that I think we should be doing. And I don't think that we're being productive in continuing to follow a path that we haven't been able to pursue. I mean, we just simply haven't been able to. And if we're serious about really making a successful small area plan, I think we've got to at least try to make the OP process work. Peter.
Just want to point out why we haven't been successful. We've been talking since February about trying to make this a success. And OP has failed. And now they are erecting a roadblock in our way. And Randy, what you are proposing is that we trust OP and we try to help them to make it work. And it seems to me that, I mean, look, I'm going to go leaflet my district. I will get people out to those. I'm sure I can convince people, some of my constituents, to go to, we will fill all those 200, all those 162 still vacant slots. It's not going to be enough. And when it's 2 more of them, it's not going to be enough, because this is a stylized conversation which is controlled by an organization that is trying to do the minimal job possible, and they've demonstrated over months and months and months. And so I understand that, you know, I mean, I certainly understand the frustration that you feel in saying that, you know, to keep pushing for community forums is a tough road. Yeah, it is, because OP is in our way. But you know, the idea, the alternative you propose is we trust the very people who've made it impossible for us to do a good job.
I didn't say trust them.
Me. I mean,
Peter, I did not say trust them. I said, let's make that process the best we can. It's what we've got. I mean, those visioning sessions are going to happen.
That's
And-
fine. I don't have.
And we need to make them as productive as possible, as participatory as possible, with as many community people participating as possible. But, you know, and I'm just looking for a practical path forward that addresses the issues that you've raised, Peter, but I don't think I think we're beating our head against a wall right now. And if we want to do something, it's going to have to be different than what we've been doing in the past, because it's not working. And I don't think it's productive for us to continue to do things that are not unproductive. So it's a tautology. Connie?
Well, the only thing I wanted to add to this is that, you know, we're assuming that all these residents kind of want to be involved. And I know that when I was working a really pretty tough job, I really had no time. And until I had time, I couldn't give time. And so the survey will help, I think, in capturing some of those. If people know that the survey is there, they can have some time to provide their input, and there's boxes where you could go beyond what the question asks. And hopefully we could ask OP to have those open-ended questions listed so we could hear, you know, we could see, and it's not just tabulated in the aggregate. I think we have to do a good job of bringing those folks, 200 people to the room first. These are the people who are willing and able. Let's get them there. That's our job right now. And after that, let's continue to work with OP to produce more of these visioning workshops. Now, if we really think 50 is too small, let's see how the first two go. And then when we have data, we'll see. And if they don't work out, then we, just like if March 4th didn't work out, we have to have another way. Let's figure out, we'll still have time to do that. I think.
Just let me ask, when is it that we're going to have time to do that? So Randy has suggested we wait until June 10th to testify at a budget hearing. Then these things end the 10th. And if we are realistic about this community, the 4th of July, things change in this community and in the city. So when is it that we have June, and we have a few weeks in September if you're to live with this schedule. This is OP's schedule, right?
Right.
Because
right.
after that, this is all we've got after this, we've got this is all legislative. This is all we've got left, right? So, I mean, I'm not sure when we have the fallback time.
Peter, when are you going to do something different before June 10th? I don't see how we can do something.
Wait. We can do something. I mean, look, you were right. Because OP has stalled us out here, we are not going to, these visioning sessions are going to occur first. Fine. I have no objection to visioning sessions. You know, I just think the thing needs a place where large numbers of people get to talk to each other. The community gets to talk to itself about these issues. Now, if we do it the 15th, that's fine. I mean, we are already, because we've been delayed, we are already being pushed out beyond these sessions. Fine with me. I don't have a problem in terms of sequencing, but we need to push forward with the community forums that we endorsed 4 weeks ago. And we need to do them before we get to the 4th of July, when this town slows down.
So how are you going to do that though, Peter? That's the question.
So look, Randy, here's what I hear you saying, and perhaps it's the sentiment of the commission, and that is fine. If it is the sentiment of the commission, that's fine. We've gone, I hear you saying, Randy, is we've gone as far as we can, and we have we can go, hold it, wait, let me just finish. Okay, so I'm gonna take self-help. By June 15th, I will have leafleted my district, and I will have an SMD meeting. And I will talk to my constituents about what they want me to do in this situation. So that's what I'm going to tend to do. I would love to do it with you. I would love to do it with this commission. As I said, Abe Clayman made a powerful statement when he said, the only power that we've got is when we do things together. Well, it's almost the only power we have. But if we can't do it together, then we'll have to do it apart. And that's my intention.
Chris?
Back to your question.
Yeah, I just want to say, Randy, I completely agree with what you said. And I think we should quit constantly throwing Office of Planning under the bus and antagonizing them. And I don't see any point in it. And it's almost impossible to get people together. I mean, you know, people have other things they want to do with their lives. And, believe it or not, the small area plan is not number one in everybody's priorities. I think things like, getting their kids to school and living their lives and getting past the pandemic are on top of everybody's priority. And I think we just need to work with the system and hear what people have to say. I think this whole idea of a dialogue among the community is a very difficult thing to make happen. And I don't think I just don't think on this issue it's going to happen.
Lisa?
Well, I'm just confused why we pass these resolutions to have the engagement sessions. I mean, why in the world would we pass resolutions, Connie's, Peter's, of all these different engagement sessions, all the discussion that we've had about this, and then at the end of the day, I've heard several commissioners allude that this community is not concerned with this. And I just think that's ridiculous. Every time I step out of my door and I talk to a constituent, they're extremely concerned about this. Have we done our job in engaging everybody? Of course we have not. We've discussed over and over and over ways to do that, and the commission has never come to a joint solution to do it. So until we do, we failed that point. But these are discussions we've been having. Peter has been talking about this for months. And then we come down to the end and say, oh, well, I guess we just got to go and do what OP does. We can't do any better. We could have done a lot better.
At this point right now.
I agree with you, Randy. I'm not debating at this point. I don't ever want to get to this point again. I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't want to get to this point again because we talked about this and we knew this was going to be a problem. We all said it. I said it. Everybody has said it. That's why 2 commissioners came up with individual resolutions to further engage the community. But, here we are at this point. And I just don't want, the commission or anyone, I guess I can only speak for myself. My constituents are concerned. Now, are they involved as I would like for them to be? Nobody's going to be at that level because I would like all of my district to fill up those meetings. But, I think we have to be very careful with how we frame that conversation, because I do believe Peter is right. There is going to be a point in time where people are going to go back to these meetings. They're going to go back to these tapes and they're going to see what was said and what was done. And for us, we have to be careful about how we frame their interest. And I know that my people are extremely interested in this. They always talk about it. Always. It's on the cusp of their lip. So just because they're not on the visioning survey, haven't signed up, there's only 36 people, you can never underestimate the level of concern in a community. And I think, that's where we're going.
I'm not underestimating it. I'm just suggesting that
we're saying that. We've had several commissioners say that.
No.
I'm saying, if I can, that we need to get people involved. Those people who are interested, we need to get them involved. And I think we just haven't pulled all of this together. We've passed those resolutions, but we haven't done any follow-up. And
you haven't done any follow-up. What are you talking about? I've been working the last 4 weeks. I've churned out memos to you for the last 4 weeks. The people who haven't done anything are OP.
Well, there are things that we can control, our own actions, and we can't control what OP does. We've got to focus on what we can control. And I've said this from the very beginning. And if we start taking the initiatives and moving these processes forward on our own, we can do that. We can't force OP to do anything. We've never been able to. So, I mean, I think we need to be very pragmatic about it again and figure out exactly what is the best we can get from this. And if that means doing it on our own, it means doing it on our own. But Peter, I think you should respond to Jamie Butler's question in the Q&A. Have you seen that?
No, let's see it. for this town hall, what strategies do you have to bring people out to it? And whatever strategies you employ, why don't you apply them to bring people out to the visioning workshops to try to make them successful? How can you ensure that all people can participate if you have hundreds of people in one Zoom in one room? Well, let me say two things. I don't know that I could prove this statistically, but before the March 4th public launch meeting, I leafleted every door in my district, including leaving stuff off and getting with people I knew in apartment buildings in which probably 25 or 30% of my constituents live. And I would bet a fair number of those 300 people who started at that meeting were there because of my leafleting. And Jamie, I will leaflet on behalf of these visioning sessions, and I will bet that a fair number of the people who sign up for them will be from District 6. I will also, in that same leaflet, call a meeting of my SMD because, to Randy's point, we have to do what's in our own power. Calling meetings of our own districts that we have been elected to represent, that's in my power. And I'm sorry, it's going to have to be an individual act and not an act of this commission, but that's something else I will think, and I will do. And frankly, I think the two fit together. I don't have objections to visioning sessions and workshops and breakouts, but you need to have some central core. You asked what the purpose of this is, as did Erkin in his note, his 10-day late note responding to our this proposal that I thought was the commission's, but apparently is not, for community forums. He says, what are the meeting's proposed outcome or products, gathering information? Democratic discussion is not just an information gathering process. It's a way for people to talk to people who they most trust, their neighbors, about issues that they have in common. We're not trying to ferret out information. We're trying to build a political consensus for change. And absent that consensus, I have deep doubts whether we will get change, or if we do, it'll be forced on people. And that's why I think these community forums, in addition to charrettes, in addition to visioning sessions, in addition to all the ancillary stuff that community groups like the Chevy Chase Citizens Association, Historic Chevy Chase, and we at least said at the same meeting we voted to do the community forums, we would do all the stuff together would provide a real process. But absent a way for the community to talk to each other, I just don't think it's going to cohere. And what's not going to come out of it is a political consensus for change.
Okay, are we going to decide anything tonight?
Well, I'd ask you to.
So what is it we should decide?
Well, I think I've heard certainly from you, Randy, that you'll vote against the proposal that we form an emergency committee to meet with Jay and ask for a meeting with the mayor to try to get this community forum process going by getting some of the use of the OP hired facilitator, Josh Lasky. That's what I propose we do.
Are you making a motion?
I'd be happy to. I'd make that motion. I don't have the language for it, but I'd be happy. But I mean, I'll get the language to you tomorrow. But I mean, yes. I mean, I move that we form a committee of 4 commissioners to seek meetings with both Commissioner Che, Council Member Che, and Mayor Bowser about the performance of OP, about the course of the Chevy Chase Small Area Plan, and about improving it by helping us put on community forums.
A second.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Well, what I was going to say is that when we got the email from Erkin today, it sounds like for them to be able to lend us the facilitator, it needs to be a co-hosted event, and they just want more details. So I think if we provided, like when you said neighbor to neighbor, people know each other, you want a big group, maybe there are more details of like, how will that conversation transpire? What are the questions that will be asked? How will we collect that information? I think that if you did that, perhaps you can convince OP to lend out the facilitator with a co-hosted forum that comes right after the workshops, after the visioning workshops, and maybe can make use of the data.
Connie, honestly, I mean, we voted to do these community forums. We met not a week later with the whole, essentially the whole upper echelon of OP and Lasky and the whole upper echelon of the firm that Lasky worked.
But it wasn't for the.
And then they asked for a specific
Peter,
outcomes
have
and
you
objectives,
ever?
and I
Have
gave
you
them that.
ever?
Just
Have you
one
ever
person
worked
talks at a
in-
time.
Have you ever worked in the government? I've worked in
Yeah.
the government for 15
Yeah,
years. You don't lend. You
Honey.
don't lend. No, I'm saying you don't lend a contractor out. You don't lend a contractor out, right? So if it's a co-hosted event, that's different. If every civic organization, including ours, wanted use of the facilitator, what are they going to do? I'm just saying that's to me that's
Connie,
logical.
let me just say, I have worked in government. I was the chief speechwriter for the Treasury Secretary.
Okay,
I was the-
Peter, don't even go.
advisor for
You
ATF.
had, no,
I just say that when you're trying to get something done, particularly something that's new, like, for example, implementing the Affordable Care Act, yeah, there's a lot of lending back. In fact, Treasury lent me HHS to do that.
That's not where we're going.
Easily
here.
done. It's easily done. It's not being done here for a particular reason, which is they just don't trust Democrats.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote on the motion that Peter has made. All those in favor of Peter's motion? All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, the motion fails then. I still think it is a good idea to have a report to Mary Chey about what's going on. I still think it's a good idea for us to testify at the OP budget hearing. Now, if there's no interest in doing that, then we don't need to do it. But those are things I think would be productive. Lisa?
I want to get clarity on the vote. There were, how many abstentions?
One.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there interest in doing either of those things or both of those things?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think we have to testify. That's important.
And that testimony is June 10th. We do not have another meeting between now and then. We've got on our agenda coming up later, probably much later. We will discuss the testimony at those budget hearings and whether or not we need to have a special meeting to talk about that, those specific pieces of testimony. But I think we should testify at that hearing. I think it would be remiss if we didn't. Well, Peter and Connie, you will draft testimony for that?
Well, if we had that small committee, we could have a committee drafted.
This is different though, Lisa. This is different.
Oh, I get it. But the committee could draft the testimony, Randy.
Well, I'm asking if there would be a committee of Lisa and Connie, Peter and Connie, since they are
already committed to, Connie and I are already committed to trying to draft testimony on the mayor's new affordable housing proposal. And I think that's the 10th too. Is that correct?
What is the
wait, no,
affordable
that
housing
was
proposal?
no. I think Peter, we were talking about the housing production trust.
Housing production.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, not the mayor's thing. Yeah.
But when is that due?
I thought that, Landy, I thought that was June 5th. Are you sure that's June 10th? Because I did a Google search. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me find I have the
I
schedule.
think it's 9:30 on June 5th was what I saw.
I have the schedule. It's in incredibly small print, however. Well, I don't have it. I can't immediately put my finger on it, but in any case.
It's within the next 2 weeks, right, or so?
Yes,
something
it's,
like that.
it's before the 14th, certainly before our next meeting. Sometime between the 3rd and the 14th. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, happy
um,
Yeah,
happy to
we can do it together.
testimony with Connie, and would very much like to meet with Councilmember Che.
okay, I'll set up a meeting, but I'll try to set up a meeting with Councilmember Che. And who wants to be involved on that meeting? Peter, anyone else?
I mean, I
Lisa?
should sit
Connie?
on it. Yeah,
Okay,
because of the SAP.
all right, I'll try to set up a meeting. Okay, I think we should move on to the next item on the agenda.
One further
John?
question.
Yes, John.
What do we do related to Erkin's communication of today?
I think
we
we should
supposed to-
respond to it with, Peter suggested that the answers to all of that are already in the materials that we submitted to him. I think if, Peter, you want to specify that and put it in writing as you suggested you could, that would be good.
Go back to Randy's point of trying to use what we have to the best, to the optimum. It seems to me we need to respond to that in some way.
I think that would be good.
What's being
I
suggested?
agree with that. Pardon?
So I'm sorry, John, what are you suggesting? You
Well,
want
we
to
have
draft a
Erkin's
further document?
questions from today, and I think more or less it's incumbent upon us to respond to that.
I will draft another document and circulate it.
Because if that's,
with
I
more
think-
detail.
because
Okay.
if that's the game that's at hand, this is one of the plays that we need to execute.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
I'll elaborate on the document that I previously submitted to all of you.
I mean, if this is the path to get last to help us out,
Yeah, it could be successful.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sure will.
Yeah.
Sure will.
Okay, let's move on to the report on the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee. Lisa, you want to report on that?
Yeah. So the committee had its first meeting and all the commissioners should have received the Zoom link on May 11th of 2021. And I believe everyone was in attendance. It was a really good turnout, really good first meeting. We talked about a few things, and I'm just gonna give a high-level overview. If you want to look at the specific discussion, I would encourage you to go to the Zoom link and watch the meeting. But some of the things that we talked about on that agenda, the mission statement, how we're going to organize. So basically, the structure, how the committee will operate in terms of structure. Meetings, so we chose the third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. as our meeting time and date. And reporting out to the ANC, and then implementation of the task force recommendations. We have a few groups that are working on to-dos from that meeting. So one group that Randy, Cal, Mara, and Renee are working on the mission statement. We also have a group that is working on the working group recommendations and basically going through the task force on racism's recommendations and segregating out the recommendations that are going to be handled by the standing committee. We have another group that is looking at the operating structure and basically what type of processes we'll be using to govern ourselves. So basically governance. And we have one member of the group that is also looking at a listserv for the standing committee. In the meantime, we've also been using Slack. So all you guys are welcome to kind of go on there and see the conversations. I definitely want you guys to be informed so that, these issues aren't a surprise to you. You can kind of see them coming live. And that would be a good way to do it, is to join that Slack group. We also discussed the issue with second district and the policing statistics. And the group really wants to take that under their belt and have that as one of the first things that we work on. So we've already kind of started that in the Slack group. There's a document being circulated on Google where we're going to be preparing a letter to the council member's office, basically Che and Janice Lewis George, asking for their assistance in getting a meeting together with MPD. We're going to have that letter drafted so that the ANC can look and approve it at our upcoming June 14th meeting. So I'll get that to you guys as soon as that is done. And that was kind of stemmed from a meeting I had with the council member's office, both Janice Lewis George and Mary Che. So definitely thank you to Dee and Matt for arranging that. And that was kind of our game plan, is to, you know, draft a letter with some of our concerns and specifically asking for a meeting with the command staff and the council members to start working on understanding what those statistics really mean and looking for ways to address any issues that might lend itself towards bias policing. So our next meeting is going to be on June 15th at 7 p.m. And again, the commissioners are invited to attend. The group is doing really well, I think, in kind of laying out what they want to work on, how they want to operate. Definitely a different structure, but we got a different group of folks. So they're highly capable. And I think they got a good plan of how they want to operate. So it's good. Hopefully we will get our mission statement first and get the recommendations organized and ranked at our next meeting. And then we can start actually addressing some of the issues that came out of the task force on racism. But we definitely thought that tackling the second district issue would give us an early win and help us in, you know, formulating how we're going to work together going forward. So with that, any questions from commissioners?
Very good summary, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any questions or comments from anybody? Okay, thank you. We really are moving forward on that, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have something substantive to report soon.
I agree.
After our next meeting, perhaps.
Yep.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible vote on testimony before the committee of the whole tomorrow on the public roundtable on vacant and blighted properties. This arose in part in our ANC because we raised the issue about the house at 2900 Military Road that has been vacant for a couple of years, and really DCRA has done almost nothing to try to rectify that situation and provide incentives for the developer to either complete the work or sell the property. And Chairman Mendelson has been particularly interested in this issue, as has Councilmember Lewis George. And both of them had an extended discussion with the director of DCRA on May 10th at a roundtable that was just for DCRA. And they covered a lot of these same issues, and the 2900 Military Road was a key component of that discussion. Now, the roundtable that's going to take place tomorrow is only for ANC commissioners, and there are 13 commissioners who have signed up to testify. They are from 12 different ANCs and from all the wards except Ward 8. And so it's a broad representation across the city. And so this is a problem that exists in every part of the city and not just in our neighborhood. And I was really surprised when I put out the word asking for people to identify vacant or blighted houses, how many turned up, and some of them that have been vacant for 20 or 30 years or more. And so we finally identified 7 of these properties with the help of a lot of our constituents. And then I had written up the testimony describing the history of what's gone on there. And it was interesting because I could find from the DCRA records and from tax records what inspections had been done over the past several years and what determinations DCRA had made with regard to whether the house was vacant and whether it was blighted. And then what the Office of Tax and Revenue had done with that information from DCRA, frequently not implementing the higher tax rate for vacant or blighted property, even though DCRA had made that determination. And so I go through in the testimony each one of those 7 properties. And there's one twist, there are a couple of twists that are important, I think. And the first is with regard to 2900 Military. That property now has they have finally gone back and retroactively classified it as a vacant property. And the outstanding taxes now and fees and other penalties amount to about $118,000. And that's a pretty big chunk of a house, of a property that's worth about maybe $1 million at most. So it's a 10% of the total value of that property. Now the banker is trying to push the developer to sell the property. And it's possible that that $118,000 in back taxes now and penalties is going to be an impediment to being able to sell the property. And what we really want to do is to get the property sold and developed appropriately and a family living in that house. So the one thing that, despite all the things that have gone on in that property, I think the city should be flexible in working with the developer and the banker to make sure that that property can be sold and passed on to some other developer who's going to do a good job with it. And so I hope that they won't be absolutely dogmatic in trying to collect that back taxes. So that's a potential problem. And the problem arises really because DCRA, it took so long to get to declare the house vacant. If they'd done it right away, the taxes would not have accumulated to that amount. The second problem is that in a couple of these houses, it was quite clear that they were applying serially for construction permits, because as long as you had a construction permit, the house wouldn't be declared vacant. And DCRA did nothing to confirm whether the construction was actually going on or whether anything was actually happening at the house. And in these 2 houses, they've had construction permits that have been extended or a new construction permit applied for and granted for 4 or 5 years. And nothing was done at the house. The condition in the house did not change at all. And so that is another problem that DCRA simply hasn't followed up to make sure that construction permits were actually being performed. So those are some of the takeaways from looking at these 7 houses. A couple of other things is that the statute is not very clear about what constitutes a vacant or blighted house. And there really needs to be greater specificity, probably provided either in further statutes or in regulations that the DCRA could adopt, so that it would be absolutely clear what constitutes a vacant or a blighted house. So these are the conclusions that we finally reach. And I think I've circulated the draft to all the commissioners. I've gotten very good comments from Peter and Connie and Lisa. And so it was very helpful. And I think this is a good piece of testimony. I think it will help the council to try to address this issue, not only in our ANC, but district-wide. So I would, first of all, any comments or questions? I know all of you have had a chance to look at this. Yeah, Chris?
Yeah, I just want to say everything that you've said is totally accurate. My experience with vacant houses. I had two, actually four of them in my SMD a while back on Connecticut Avenue, and it took over 2 years to get them resolved. The only reason it was finally resolved is we had some guy exposing himself to passersby in the houses, and that got some of the council members excited, and they got on the DCRA's back, and they managed to get the continuing. They pulled the same stunt like you said. They would move wheelbarrow around a couple times before the inspector showed up, so that they would continue with their construction permit. And they also DCRA also was lax in adding the fines that you mentioned. But anyway, I think your testimony was spot on, and I think hopefully you'll get results.
Lisa?
Yeah, I'm glad, Randy, we have the statute issues in there, because I do, agree. I think we discussed over email that language is not clear at all, and they really have to look at strengthening that language surrounding vacant or blighted. Is there and I know the audit previously, I think, mentioned a lot of things in our testimony. Anything that we're leaving out that the audit, do you remember the audit that was done?
Yeah,
reading
right.
that?
Yeah.
And I'm just now thinking about it. I didn't think to compare that with ours, but
I didn't specifically compare it, but I think we probably covered pretty much everything.
okay.
I mean, these 7 houses, interestingly, ran the gamut, and they illustrated a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. And so their enforcement division, something struck me when you said with the permits, the serial filing of those construction permits. I'm assuming they have an enforcement division that should be going out looking at that.
Yeah.
Do we know anything about that? Their
Well,
budget or?
I don't know any details of it.
Okay.
But they have that obligation.
Right.
They've been called on the carpet about this before.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Chairman Mendelson sent them a long letter on April 26th with a lot of questions about specific properties and about more general issues as well. It took DCRA until just end of last week to finally respond to that. And their responses are really quite poor, not surprisingly. The agency, as Chairman Mendelson said in the May 10th hearing, he considered them to be completely dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And regrettably, I think that's true in a lot of respects.
Yeah, it's very this is for the revenue loss. I mean, there's so many issues wrapped in this testimony, and the past audit fine. It's just unbelievable. It's really unbelievable that this is carrying on for so long without being rectified.
Right.
I mean, if you think of all the vacant and blighted properties that could have collected these penalties on, I mean, they could have funded several
more
really
importantly,
important programs.
If we have a housing crisis in the city,
exactly,
we should be filling every one of these houses. They should all be occupied.
It should be the number one thing that they do. It's astonishing.
Okay.
But did you see there was an email that came from DCRA saying, giving us all the stats of all the work that they've done, how many inspections and so forth. So, I mean, something's going on there.
Well, the director likes to trot those numbers out, but and some of them are, I know I put in these requests for inspections, and they would write back to me with an automated response that says, yes, an inspector will be out on X date. And then they would send me a request for how did we do, essentially. Didn't we resolve this issue for you? Aren't you completely satisfied?
No.
So I think they're padding their statistics. Okay, I would move that we approve the testimony for tomorrow. And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, thank you.
And Randy, if you can put your draft testimony, if you can give the link to Stephanie, we should post it in that meeting information page. Yeah.
It is posted. It has been,
I didn't-
the draft was posted. I'll send her the final version
Okay.
that can be posted.
All
The
right.
draft has been on since middle of last week.
Mhm.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the discussion of possible vote on testimony at the budget hearing. And we've already talked about this to some extent. Obviously, the problem is that the testimony on the budget has to be approved before we see the budget. And because the budget doesn't come out until Thursday. And I think in some instances, for particular agencies, we can anticipate what's going to happen and prepare the testimony accordingly. I did that with regard to DC Water and DOEE, because the issue, I think, is funding for removal of lead service lines. And the funding would ultimately go to DC Water, but it would go probably through DOEE. And they would be the administrator to look over it and make sure it was done properly. But we know now that we want to get what DC Water recommended, the 350 million to remove all of the lead service lines for all customers with no charge to the customers. That's what we want, the 350 million. Now, either we're going to see that in the mayor's budget and she'll say, yes, that's we're going to allocate the federal funds for that, or she won't, or she'll allocate some portion of that. And so I think it is a pretty easy fix on the testimony to just react to whatever the mayor has done and say either we want the full 350 million or we support the mayor's allocation of 350 million. So for that testimony, I think we could actually approve it subject to seeing what the mayor says and the finalization of the testimony and getting approval from the commission at that point. Now, some of the others may be a little bit more difficult. The ones that are coming up before June 14th, and that we therefore would have to act on either now or in a special meeting, would be the DCPS, the Housing Production Trust Fund, the Office of Planning, and the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions. Now, the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, as I indicated to the commissioners, and I advised you, I told you about this before the survey went out, but there's a group of commissioners who have gotten together, and I've been a part of that, to develop a strategic plan for OANC, and that was requested by Councilmember White. And so we're endeavoring to do that, and part of that was to do a survey of commissioners. I think Peter may be the only one of our commission that has completed the survey. So any of the others of you who haven't, if you could do that, that would be helpful. You did, Lisa?
Yeah.
I had the names, but not everyone had a name on it, and so I may have.
I just did it yesterday.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's the reason why I haven't seen it then. Okay.
I will do it tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I think we're getting some good data out of that and some helpful things to focus the OANC on how they can actually help commissioners.
Yeah.
And so Chuck Elkins has written some testimony. I've edited it, and a couple of other commissioners have been looking at it. And it won't be testimony from any individual, any commission. It'll be just this group of commissioners who's been working with Councilmember White on developing this. So I don't think there's any need for our commission to do something separately and apart from that. But with regard to the OP, we've talked about OP and the Housing Production Trust Fund. I think both of those are ones where we should prepare some testimony. And Peter?
Yeah, with regard to OP, I mean, you, in our earlier discussion, you just said, well, we ought to be asking if we need money for, you know,
Mhm.
other aspects of the small area plan. Would this commission back, I mean, from early on, when we were having discussions about the small area plan, we said, you know, it's got to end sometime. It can't go on forever. But as I say, the timeline that's up now, basically, I mean, by the time we get to the new fiscal year, there's not going to be anything involving the community going on, as it, at least the timeline as it now stands. I mean, would this commission back an ask for a further extension of time?
Not beyond the end of the year, I don't think, but I could see us asking for further community input after September, after October 1st.
Would that be
So
part of the testimony?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have to justify that budget if we want to ask for it, right? So I think
Yep.
we would have to extend it. I mean, if they're going to send the plan to the council in September, that's not going to work for
No,
asking for more
is
money
that what
for
they're
October
planning?
1st.
To send it to the
No, on
council in
thing on
September?
yeah, the thing on the thing
No.
on the website, yeah.
Well, he said that, but I
It
can't
says that,
remember.
It says that it's sort of mid-September, there's a release draft for 30-day public comment.
Oh, yeah, so
And
that's
a
not the
memorial
council yet.
hearing and then council hearings. The council hearings under this plan are way off in December. But they say we basically,
Yeah.
the committee has
Yeah.
to, the community has to finish its process under this timeline by mid-September, because then there has to be some sort of, I mean, I don't know. It says that there has to be a 30-day public comment period. So,
Right,
Well, we could,
that is a part of it. Yeah.
so I mean, I think that if we're going to ask for money, I mean, we have to justify the ask.
Mhm.
But it's a little hard to justify the ask in the new fiscal year if you know there's not.
well,
the
we
opportunity
should say
for
that there
community.
should continue to be community participation. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
Okay. Well, I'm happy to participate in both the Housing Production Trust Fund testimony and the OP testimony.
okay. Now, do we need to have a special meeting to review that testimony and decide what to do about it?
How else? Are we gonna-
Or can, well, we could approve it in principle tonight, and then subject to the specific wording that would come out from you and Connie.
Fine, whatever. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
I-
let's aim for that. I think,
Okay,
if it
Let's
doesn't
try.
work, we can call a meeting.
right.
can we do that? Yeah.
Notice, that's right. We have to do a week's notice.
So,
You want to schedule a special meeting just in case and we could cancel it?
We could do that.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Okay. The meeting will have to be on, I guess well, OP's testimony is not until later, but the DCPS testimony, which unfortunately Michael's not here, but
Right.
If we're going to do anything on DCPS, I think their hearing is
that's the
on
June
3rd.
3rd, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So we would have to have a special meeting on June 2nd. Is there any problem with having a meeting? Does that even give us, what is June 2nd? Is
Well,
that a
June
Tuesday?
2nd is
On
what you said.
Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday, and you said the council was doing the presentation of the mayor's
Right.
budget from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., right?
Right, but we could have a meeting in like 7 o'clock on June 2nd.
I can't do it after 4 p.m. I'm sorry. I could do it in the morning, but I cannot do it after 4. I have a
Well,
commitment.
Well, we could do it in the morning because we will have the mayor's budget. We'll just have to analyze it ourselves, which we're going to have to do anyway, when it comes out on the 27th.
Yeah, fine.
I don't know if any of you looked at the budget materials in the past. They are extremely voluminous,
They are.
and
Yes.
it will take some effort to find the things that are relevant to us.
Now, when is the budget hearing? You said it's on that day?
No, the
June 2nd?
council's presentation.
On June 2nd,
Right.
there's a presentation to the council on the budget.
That's what I'm asking about. When
6
is,
12 to
hours.
6.
Noon to
12,
6.
12 to 6 on June 2nd.
I'd really rather see that.
Yeah, I'm not sure it would be, I mean, it's not going to be an opportunity for any questions or anything. It's just going to be a presentation, and it's going to probably be at the 35,000 foot level. I don't think they're going to get into a lot of the details that are going to be important for us.
Well, we have from May 27th when it's released until
Right.
June 2nd to, I guess, go look for the parts for the testimonies that we need, right? So. Which
Well,
means that we'll have to draft it. We'll have to draft it in between.
Randy, on June 1st at 4 p.m., we have Murray.
Correct.
So we'll have a bunch of commissioners around that day. Should we
Might
make
be good.
this meeting on the 1st as well?
That might be
Just to-
better.
There will be some
What is on the,
commissioners.
what is it on the first?
Our Murray
Murray.
walkthrough.
4 p.m. we have Murray.
ECC, the ECC
Oh, right,
walkthrough.
right. Well, that's going to be in person though. We're
That's
going to be
gonna in
out there.
person, but I just think since a number of commissioners are going to be around that day. you
It
know.
can't be a public, it won't be a public meeting then. If we have.
No,
have it
No,
at Murray.
I mean, maybe we could have a public meeting at 3 p.m. and go to Murray at 4 p.m. or so. I'm just thinking we can consolidate,
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
things in one day.
Yeah, like
That's all.
ANC related stuff all in one day.
It's really
Yeah.
all in one day.
Yeah. I feel like
Um,
sure.
Just-
Is that, is the first then a Tuesday? I can't remember.
It's a Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, we'd have to notice the meeting tomorrow then.
I think that's a bit much. I think that's a bit rush. I mean, just for me.
Well, it's going to be rushed in any case because the council has rushed the hearings, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean,
They do
I
this
don't know
every
if it's
year.
a good idea of having that meeting prior to the walkthrough on Murray on the.
Yeah, okay.
No, it would be
It's a
after.
lot.
I
It's a
would
lot.
not schedule that back to back. I just think that's
Okay.
asking
All
a
right.
bit much.
Okay. The morning of the 2nd?
I could reschedule something before 12, something I have from 9 to 12.
My only comment on that, Randy, is if it's a public meeting to accommodate
Yeah.
the public, our meetings are always at 7. I'm
Yeah.
not favorable of, changing that time. I just have some consternation about that because they're used to 7 p.m.
Right.
Okay, so let's do it. I will get out of my obligation earlier to make a 7 o'clock.
We could even do it at 7:30. Would that make it a bit easier for you, Connie?
Maybe, yeah, because this thing,
'Cause I
it's
think this will be a
it's a
short meeting.
graduation. It's a graduation thing. So,
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
not for my kid, but it's for a very good friend. It's a
Yeah.
good thing. So yeah, it's in Virginia. It starts at 4. So if we did it at 7:30, I could make it back. I think I
Okay.
could do it. Yeah, I could
Okay.
have a good
this-
showing and then do this thing.
This should not be a long meeting. Because the only thing we'll have on the agenda is the approval of the testimony.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's really regrettable that we have to compress this in such a way, but it happens every year. This one is more compressed than normal because the budget is coming out later than normal. But I think it's the only way we can be heard if we want to be heard on these budget issues, and I think we do.
It's par for the course. We've had
Okay.
almost a special meeting every month, so. it's okay.
Okay, well, this one, let's plan to keep it relatively short, or keep it short. Okay. I think we're to commission business then. Okay, the first thing we need to do is elect a new vice chair. And we've discussed the candidates, and Lisa has volunteered to be vice chair and Peter will take over as secretary. So that would be the slate for the new officers. Any discussion about that? I move that we elect Lisa as the vice chair and Peter as the secretary. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a new vice chair and a new secretary. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Peter.
Okay, the one thing, John, this is going to require, unfortunately, a new signature card at the bank.
All right.
So
Okay.
so that everybody can, so that Peter can now sign checks.
Yay!
There has to be two, Peter. There have to be
Yeah,
two. Okay. The minutes for the April 26th and the May 10th meetings, Lisa has circulated those to everyone. And some of us have made some changes and suggestions that she's incorporated. Any other suggestions or changes to the meeting minutes? Okay, I'll move that we adopt the minutes for those two meetings.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in
Second.
favor? John?
John,
All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, John, are there any checks we need to approve?
Yes, I have 5 checks. Two of them are for the Department of Employment Security. One of them is for $129.53. That's for our normal quarterly report. The other one is $108.73 for the family leave payments. And then I have 3 payments to for Stephanie, January 546, February 378, and March for 483. I think she bills on a bi-weekly basis, but I think we can make monthly checks, and that catches us up through the first quarter for Stephanie.
Okay. Alan always told us, I don't know whether it's true or not, but that because Stephanie's compensation is in the budget, which is approved, anything that's in the budget already, we don't have to approve an individual check. But I've always thought it was better practice to approve all the checks. So I think we should do that.
I'd like to continue doing that. I just think it's
Okay, I agree.
And one
Okay.
other thing I need to report regarding Stephanie is she has completed our ONC financial report. So that'll probably be ready for later this week for signatures, and we can send that to the OANC, and then we will be fully caught up with our financial reports to OANC
That's
for the
great.
relevant quarters.
Okay.
So hopefully then I think I will double check with Dawn or with Gottlieb. Since we are up to date, we can make a question about our allocation for the current year.
Now, those have to be, has that been approved by the commission at a public meeting? The financial report?
No, that we have to approve that, and we have to get the signatures of our
Right,
office.
okay. Yeah, we'll have to,
The paperwork will be done this week.
great. Okay, then
So-
what I will do is notice in our meeting, our special meeting, the approval of this quarterly report as well.
Okay,
Assuming that it's going to be done by then.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
All right, you want to move to approve those checks?
Yes, I'd like to move to approve those checks.
A second? All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to have another busy June 14th meeting with our usual reports on the small area plan and the racial and social equity committee. That may have less to report though, because we're meeting the following night, I guess. This is one of those few instances where the second Monday and the third Tuesday are right after each other. Then we'll have a presentation by the Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking on COVID-19 scams, avoiding coronavirus fraud.
Mhm.
And then a presentation and discussion by the chief of the Bethesda Chevy Chase Rescue Squad. Has anybody talked to the chief about that? You have, Lisa? Thank you.
Yeah, we've been communicating on email,
Okay.
so he did respond back to me. I want to give him a call
Okay.
because he requested an in-person meeting, and I need to clarify that with him
Okay.
to see if he wants to do an in-person meeting with some of the commissioners prior to the community meeting, just to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay.
But he was very
right.
accommodating.
Okay.
So are they basically planning to withdraw?
There's some discussion going on. He did not really get into that. He kind of just recapped what was in the letter. There was a meeting with, I guess Che's office. It seems like they're reconsidering some things. So he did not say that was their plan, but he would like to have, and he did request an in-person meeting. So we can take
It was kind of a
that.
strange letter. It was postmarked North Carolina, and there was no signature.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure how or where the letters were sent from, but there's some discussion.
Okay. All right. Another item that I intimated earlier in the meeting, a report from DPR about the program instructors at the community center and the opening for the community center. I hope we're going to have more information about that. And then finally, the presentation by the Veterans Advisory Board that we postponed from tonight's meeting. Okay. And thank you all. Thank you.
Yes, let's all the attendees who stayed to the very end. Yes.
Stephanie,
Got the Q&A?
Yeah.
pardon?
Let's make sure she has.
Yes, Stephanie, there was only one Q&A, one question. Stephanie will copy the chat as well too. And if Stephanie will just let me know, I'll keep the meeting open until then.
You know what? Before you end, I'm going to add that Northwest Neighbors Village survey. I promised that I would put it on there.
Okay. Okay, we can consider the meeting adjourned though, if anyone else wants to leave.
Yeah, don't.
I'm not leaving, but.
Okay, don't leave yet. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me try to find this link.
Peter, I'll send you Amir's announcements.
That's his job.
Oh,
That's good. Do not float, girl. Do not float.
I'm trying not to. But it might be easier for you because you got the transcript, I don't know.
Oh, it's all going to be so much easier for me. Yeah.
Peter, I'll send you the check numbers too.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay, Stephanie's got it all. Okay, good night, folks.
Good night. Thank you.
very much.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.